here at the world's largest gift store. I can't tell you if it really is the world's largest or not, for real, but they say they are. And we are here to see Lucille Ball's limousine. Okay, so this is Lucille Ball's 1940 Cadillac limousine. There is no information about this car posted at all. They told me it was because someone made a copyright complaint, which is ridiculous. I mean, so they used to have pictures of Lucy and, you know, the I Love Lucy signs up here. So that would be a legitimate copyright complaint, but a sign telling the history of the car is not copyrighted. I mean, the history of this car is not copyrighted by anybody. That's a fact. I don't know when Lucy bought it. Like I said, there's no history on this car here at all. The staff told me that Lucy used it. When she was done with it, she sold it to the studio. So maybe CBS. And then a doctor in LA bought it. And then I think the next time it was sold here. But I'm not 100% on that. So Lucy came to Hollywood, and before she did I Love Lucy, she had done more than 65 movies, so she was known as the queen of the B movies. And there are a lot of people here. I apologize. There's a lot of noise. But you know, she was in her 30s when it came to around 1948, and she just knew that she wasn't going to make it as a leading lady. She wasn't really made for that. She was blonde at this time, like pretty much everybody else. But she was getting older, and so she decided to go into radio, where it really didn't matter how old you were or what you looked like. It was just your voice. And she started doing a show for CBS called My Favorite Husband. This show was basically I Love Lucy on the radio. Had the same premise, and they did radio shows at this time in front of a live audience so that you would have the sound of the laughing, because there was no such thing as a laugh track. So she was able to perform for the audience and look at them and make faces and stuff like she later did in her television show. She met Desi in 1940 on one of the movies she made. Too Many Girls is what it was called. And he was a Cuban immigrant. He had fled Cuba during the Cuban Revolution. And he was in that movie. She was the star, but he was not really anybody. Nobody really knew who Desi Arnaz was. And so she did marry him, and it was kind of a rocky relationship from the very beginning, because he was a band leader. He went out on the road. You know what happens on the road when guys are by themselves and touring. And so she wanted to keep him grounded. And so when CBS approached her about turning My Favorite Husband into a television show, she agreed. But she said, Desi has to play my husband. And they didn't want to do that. First of all, Desi was a nobody. Second of all, he was Cuban. And they did not believe American audiences would believe she would be married to a Cuban immigrant. And Lucy, of course, said, well, but I am married to a Cuban immigrant. Well, they still didn't believe her. So she and Desi took to the road, and they started performing all over the country. Kind of the show that you see in the I Love Lucy show, where he has stage productions and she does silly things trying to be a part of the show. It was a lot like that, and it was a success. And basically, they needed her more than they didn't want him. And so it didn't take long for the studio to say, okay, fine, he can play your husband. And the show was a lot like their life. He really was a band leader in real life. He really was a Cuban immigrant. They really were married. They had a child the same day that the Ricardos had a child on the show. But again, it didn't really ground him the way she had hoped. He drank a lot. He continued to fool around, and by 1955, it was making its way into the tabloids, and by 1960, they were divorced. But I can't tell you how much I love this television show, and it was groundbreaking in so many ways. First of all, television at the time was kind of the graveyard. It was where you went when your career was over. And Lucy changed that. She also, the way they filmed it was revolutionary. They filmed it live in front of an audience, and they had 3 cameras filming all at the same time. And they put it on actual film so that it would last forever. It's why we still have such great copies and reruns of I Love Lucy. Before that, it was kinetoscopes. They were not designed to last more than just showing them in whatever city the kinetoscope was sent to. So it preserved the show forever. It was also the first show to be filmed in LA. And that was another demand that she made. And that was why it was filmed on film, because they said if we send these kinetoscopes to New York, they're going to look terrible. They're going to be terrible quality. So they were thinking about long-term, at least Desi and Lucille, long-term preservation and good quality film. Just look at another show from that period, I don't know, Life of Riley, and just compare the quality to I Love Lucy, and you can tell it was not filmed on film. So, she turned television from that graveyard to something that people could make a career with and be proud of. It was the first television show to have a pregnant woman portrayed on it, and Desi is the one who wanted that to be in the storyline. When in season 2, she became pregnant with Desi Arnaz Jr., and it became a 7-episode arc storyline in season 2, and it was hilarious because the studio said you can talk about her being pregnant, you can show her being pregnant, but you can't say the word pregnant. And so it created a situation where she's trying to tell him in that episode where she's trying to tell him that she's pregnant, but she can't say the word, so the whole episode she keeps getting interrupted, and eventually she tells him in the middle of his show, he's singing a song called We're Having a Baby, and he knows there's a woman in the audience who's going to have a baby, and so he's going around the audience, is it you? Is it you? And then, Lucy just starts nodding. He's like, really? It's you? So it's a really great moment in television history. And I remember the episode where she finally gives birth. And I forget how many millions of people watched that episode, but it was just crazy. But they've been practicing and, grab the bag, grab the mom, for the moment when they have to go to the hospital. And, of course, finally at the very end, he gets the bag, he gets everything, but he forgets Lucy. It's a great show. I enjoyed it so much when I was a kid, and I wouldn't mind watching it again just because it's been so long. And, it wasn't all roses. William Frawley and Vivian Vance played their neighbors, the Mertzes, and Vivian Vance loathed William Frawley. He had a drinking problem. He sometimes was not professional. She also thought he was beneath her. He was a character actor. He'd done 100 movies. She was a Broadway star. She just thought she was better than he was, but he was a really good actor, and he was really fun to watch. And the fact that they're always kind of sniping at each other in the show, the fact that they really didn't like each other, I think it kind of helped the chemistry, made it more fun to watch. But she is quoted as saying, "Who would ever believe I was married to that old coot?" And of course his response to that was very inappropriate. I mean, they just did not like each other, and when she found out that he had died, I forget exactly what she said, but it was not, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." It was more like, "Good riddance." So she really did not like him. Desi and Lucy were also both really good business-minded people. So they partially funded the show. They gave about $5,000 of their own money to get I Love Lucy made, and they formed a production company in order to do this, and they called it Desilu. Now, Desilu would go on to become an absolutely super successful production company. It also gave them more power over the show. They weren't just actors. They weren't just going to get their salaries for being actors. They also would get paid for any residuals if the show ever aired in reruns, which obviously it has never stopped doing that. However, in 1957, they did actually sell the rights to the show back to the company for $5 million, but in doing so, they got enough money to buy RKO Studios. And on that studio, even though they weren't going to get residuals anymore from the re-airing of the show, having this new production company, they made shows like Mission Impossible, Star Trek. Lucille Ball is almost completely responsible for Star Trek because she made the decision on whether or not they were actually going to go through and make that show. And after their divorce in 1960, she bought Desi out, and so she ran this company herself. She was the head of this company. She had 1,700 employees. She did make other shows. She had The Lucy Show, starting in 1962, which also starred Vivian Vance, which was also very successful. It hasn't had the staying power that I Love Lucy did. I have maybe seen 1 or 2 episodes, but mostly it is just talked about on documentaries about her. I've never seen it airing. I don't know, maybe it's on something like Hulu. I'm not sure. If you know, let me know down below. She did get remarried. He got remarried as well. I'm not sure if they were married more than once after being married to each other, but they did stay in each other's lives, especially at the end, back when he was getting sick. She cared for him and took care of him some. I forget what year he died. It was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before she did. And when she died in 1989, when she died kind of suddenly, some of her friends commented, well, actually, it may have been her current husband at the time, said, well, now she's finally with Desi again. So, you know, they just had a bond that sadly, man, if he could have just kept his hands to himself, maybe it would have had a different ending. But we have I Love Lucy to enjoy forever and ever, and thankfully we do, and we can thank them for that, for putting it on real film. And this is a beautiful car, and it looks more like it looks blue through the finder, but it's more of a teal in real life. It looks very different color, but it's beautiful. Sorry I can't get closer. It's behind glass, as you can see. These are interesting side mirrors. It's very small for such a big car. See where you could take the wheel. I actually think that's really neat place to put the spare tire. It just looks fashionable. Where you would put the gas. I wonder how much you could put in there. There's their suitcase. They're ready to go.
They're going to be more than $10.
Didn't you say he walks with a cane?
I feel this.
Oh God,
Yeah, feel that one too.
Look, on top.
Okay now.
Camel. The llama.
Oh my goodness, my daughter needs this. That she is. Oh my goodness, look at those underwear. Oh. Oh my gosh, these would be great gag gifts. Pull my finger. I'll be doing some Route 66 episodes. I have this backpack at home. Oh my god, this scared me to death. I thought it was a person. Can you get a shirt for the place?
That would make dieting easier, wouldn't
Wouldn't
it?
it? Oh no, that's not going to make me think about Oreos, or that's not going to make me think about Pop-Tarts. You can always find your Elvis mugs. I'm actually not that far from Memphis. Maybe I could go to Memphis sometime. Make this look like Chris Evans. We have a deal. These are pretty. These would look good in a baby's room. These metal signs are pretty cool for a man cave or something. Or your kitchen. Or anywhere, really. Eat. Beer. Route 66. And don't forget wine. Yeah, rebooted Care Bears aren't that bad. Some of the rebooted things I think are just terrifying. I mean, I guess My Little Ponies are okay, but I don't care for them. Oh, here's some. I just don't like them. The old ones were better. Sorry. If that makes me old, I'm old. I don't want to give $23 for it, but I love these pajamas. And they're just Maggie's size. A 2T are still a little big, but she can sleep in 2T. A clearance table. Trivia game. Love trivia games. It says as is, so there must be something wrong with it. Accurate for my house.